Hey, what's going on, guys? Owen Straley, Steelers Depot here, back with my 2019 series reviewing the Steelers cornerback position. And today we're going to take a look at the Steelers' primary left side cornerback in Joe Haden. So, a little bit of a downgrade in terms of usage from his past years in 2017 and 18, in terms of as he was no longer the Steelers' clear best option at cornerback. He wasn't doing the following, shadowing type things we saw in the previous 2 years. But I'd actually argue it allowed Joe to play more to his strengths. He's not necessarily a number one lockdown corner anymore, but what he's lost in speed and overall talent, he's made up for with just football IQ in his older years. And that's really what's going to stand out on film this year. One of his best years of his career, 17 pass deflections and 5 interceptions. And I'm just going to take you through really what went on. So first, we're going to take a look here, week 3 against the 49ers. And Joe Haden's going to line up in outside leverage here. Outside leverage because the receiver is lined up inside the numbers and because he knows that he has Minkah Fitzpatrick playing over the top out of this cover one look here. So once again, maintains his outside leverage and is able to quickly drive on the football, getting his hand in there for a nice pass breakup and creating a turnover here. Again, nice aggressive safety play from Minkah Fitzpatrick coming down, inserting himself, and he's there for the tip. But this is all Joe Haden making this play. So here in week 6, Chargers driving in the fourth quarter, 3rd and long, and Joe Haden's going to be isolated on Keenan Allen, which that in itself shows an improvement from 2018 as we can all remember. Keenan Allen abused the Steelers linebackers in man coverage repeatedly in the week 13 matchup from the previous year with just the same thing. Chargers would motion him to the slot, and the Steelers' corners would not follow him. Linebackers would stay on him. So that's a major difference we see here. And as we'll go into technique, so Joe Haden, covering him out of the slot, he's going to line up with outside leverage to take away any outbreaking route from Keenan Allen here, and does a good job. So Allen's going to attack Haden with an inside stem to try to get Haden to compromise his outside leverage so that Allen can break back out. Haden does a good job of mirroring Allen's inside release, getting hands on him to disrupt the timing before going into trail position and eventually looking up, locating the football, and making a great athletic pass breakup. And these are the winning plays in the NFL. Whether we can talk about pass rush, we can talk about scheme, but when it comes down to it, you need your corners to win their one-on-one matchups to be an elite defense in the NFL, and that's a great step we saw the Steelers take this year. One thing that's been wonderful to watch with Joe Haden in his time with the Steelers is, although he's not the athletic freak number one corner that he was with the Browns years ago, he's expanded his bag and his toolbox to include many different coverage techniques which he can break out in different situations. So here, Colts are going to try to attack him on a smash route just before halftime, and we're going to see Haden opt, instead of a traditional backpedal, to go with more of a catch technique where he's not going to give any ground and he's going to basically sit, collision the receiver at his break, and be ready to break on the football. So once again, just the patience by Haden here to know, and whether it's film study, whether it's alignment, there's something that told Joe Haden here, this guy's not going deep, I'm ready to sit down, and I'm ready to make a play on the football. So great instincts, but also just shows the veteran presence here and ends up making a great breakup in the football just before halftime, ultimately setting up Minkah Fitzpatrick's pick six a couple plays later. So here, fourth quarter, Colts in the red zone, and they're going to try to attack Joe Haden here in a slant slide combo, trying to get the slot receiver to rub him off and see if Paris Campbell can get some yak underneath on this slant. Joe Haden's having none of it. Once again, we're going to take a look at Joe Haden's patience here. I stay on the receiver, and he never takes any steps backwards, immediately driving on it and making a physical tackle. And that's one of the biggest things we need to understand is in the NFL, cornerbacks are going to give up completions. It happens. So being a good tackler and being able to limit yak is a huge skill set that doesn't get talked about enough with a guy like Joe Haden, who's been a rock-solid tackler for Pittsburgh and really fits the mold of the Steelers' corners for years in terms of Ike Taylor, Bryant McFadden. The Steelers have always valued good tackling on the edge with their corners, and it's another component to a great defense. So fourth quarter here against the Colts, and Steelers protecting a 2-point lead late. Mike Tomlin and Keith Butler opt to dial up a 5-man pressure, leaving the Steelers in cover one on the back end. So Colts attempt to attack Joe Haden's side once again with a smash concept, and Brian Hoyer opts to dump it off underneath on the hitch to Chester Rogers. A little bit of an overthrow from Hoyer leaves Rogers exposed. Rogers ultimately, debatably, either drops this pass or has it broken up by Haden, but you just love to see the patience from Haden here and the physicality at the catch point. You're not going to be able to hit receivers too much in the game, so it's good to see the physical demeanor of Haden to just take any opportunity he has to put a physical hit on the receiver and make his presence known at any point possible. So week 10 here against the Rams just before half, and the Steelers opt to come out in a cover 3 cloud concept with Steven Nelson, Terrell Edmonds, and Minkah Fitzpatrick splitting the deep third zones, and Joe Haden underneath as a cloud flat defender. Joe Haden lines up an outside leverage as both receivers are in a cut split and operates off of his 2-to-1 read. Once he sees that number 2 has sat down and isn't going to the flat, he's able to cheat on number 1, which he does here with a beautiful undercut on this 10-yard in to Robert Woods. Once again, Haden does a great job of disguising his coverage, appears to look as if he's bailing, maybe as part of some kind of cover 3, before understanding that as a flat player with no one to his flat, he has become a free defender and is able to really just use his playmaking skills and undercut any route possible. So real veteran play by Haden here and just a great read. So one of the most impressive plays I've seen Joe Haden make so far in his career as a Pittsburgh Steeler comes right here, early third quarter against the Rams, and Steelers come out in a cover 3 call. And the Rams actually have a perfect cover 3 beater on here, running a post wheel out of play action. So we're going to see just great overall coverage by the Steelers here, but we'll take a look first at Minkah Fitzpatrick, who comes up and is able to take away the post aggressively with active safety play. So Haden, who early melts to the post and is able to take that read away along with Fitzpatrick, once he sees Fitzpatrick, communicates the in and executes a beautiful speed turn to the outside, high pointing the football for an easy pick where Jared Goff never saw it coming. And this is just, it's film study, it's veteran awareness, and it's just an overall great display of football instincts by Joe Haden here, and just the veteran instincts that make him a great corner on this defense. So here early in the fourth quarter, and the Rams opt to go with a post-over concept, isolating Cooper Kupp on Joe Haden and going with max protection up front. So we're going to take a look here, and Cooper Kupp lined up in a cut split, so Joe Haden can't press him, can't get hands on him, and because he's in a cut split, Haden is forced to take outside leverage, taking away any outside routes and being prepared to run with any in-breaking routes. And while Joe Haden might not have the speed and athleticism that he possessed in his early years with the Browns, he actually shows a great deal of speed here and also awareness. Once again, like we talked about in the Nelson video, it's no steps backwards. So we're going to check Haden off the snap here. No steps backwards, patient, quickly moves laterally once he sees Cooper Kupp declare, and goes into trail position across the field, ultimately undercutting it on a great pass breakup and a very tough play to make because, as we can see, the play is designed where the post is going to clear out that side. So Cooper Kupp basically has a whole field to just run away from Joe Haden. And this is one of the toughest routes in football to defend. It's just pure speed on speed, and Haden does a great job here of remaining in phase. So late in the fourth quarter here, Steelers protecting a 5-point lead against the Rams, and they opt to go with a cover 6 look. So quarter, half look with 2 quarters of the field being split by Steven Nelson and Terrell Edmonds, and a half of the field being covered by Minkah Fitzpatrick with Joe Haden playing underneath him. So Haden sees the receiver line up well inside the numbers in a cut split and takes outside leverage against him. Playing from the outside, he's able to go into trail technique where he plays under the receiver, knowing that he has Minkah over the top. And ultimately, he plays right into his technique here with the receiver running a 10-yard curl, and Haden's able to sit right down on it from underneath, ultimately making a great pass breakup, deflected into Minkah Fitzpatrick's hands for the game-sealing interception. And this is the huge improvement we saw from the Steelers in 2019, the ability to finish out games, not only with a great pass rush, but with good sound coverage on the outside, and elite veteran play from a guy like Joe Haden is a big piece of that. So early in a Week 12 game against the Bengals here, and we're going to see the Steelers come out in a cover 2 look, 5-man pressure, and playing cover 2 behind it. So Joe Haden is sitting as a flat defender here. Bengals motion to trips, and run a pretty common trips concept in the NFL with two in routes accompanied by a corner route from the slot receiver, here a tight end for the Bengals. And so Joe Haden's responsibility on this play, he has to sink and gain depth, keeping everything in front of him and being in the window to take away that corner route, forcing the shorter route, which he does here, and then also it's called midpointing it. So he wants to be in the window where he can either drive the short route and take away the deep route at the same time. Haden does a good job of that here, shuffling with patience before driving up and finishing physically on the receiver here with a pass breakup. So we're going to see Haden, good drive, good click and close, good patience, and then finally he finishes by playing through the hands and securing the tackle here and just showing physicality because receivers, for the most part, don't like being beat up physically, and you take any chance you can get to get a shot on them. So good physicality, good presence of mind by Haden here, and just more consistent coverage from him. So here, week 12 against the Bengals, and we're going to take a look at Joe Haden on a crack and replace. Bengals offensive scheme actually does a pretty good job of washing Terrell Edmonds and the rest of the Steelers defense down, creating a one-on-one matchup with Joe Mixon on Joe Haden, which is a pretty advantageous matchup for most offenses. You want to create those cornerback on running back matchups and see if your running back can make a miss in open space. However, Haden does a good job of not allowing that to ever become a realistic possibility by closing ground and playing aggressive with this run defense. So he ends up sticking Joe Mixon at the line, not allowing Mixon to get going, not allowing Mixon to have any angles to make him miss. Whereas, let's say Joe Haden had stayed flat-footed, not gained ground, Joe Mixon then has the entire field to make you miss either way. And as we saw with Artie Burns years ago against the Chicago Bears, a failed crack and replace can turn a run like this, where it's stuck in the backfield, into a run where it ends up being, a 98-yard touchdown. So not a play that's going to show up on many highlights, but just consistently solid run defense from Joe Haden and allowed the Steelers to be the elite defense that they were in 2019. So we're going to take a look at two back-to-back plays here from Week 12, late in the fourth quarter, and Joe Haden really stepped up. So first, we're going to look here. Steelers going to cover one look, and just great communication between Devin Bush and Joe Haden, where Bush says, hey, take the slot, and I'll take Joe Mixon on the outside. More advantageous matchup. And it ends up paying off because the Bengals were running a concept to attack maybe a mismatch in the slot with the slot fade here. So to the technique of it, we'll see Joe Haden, great patience off the line, keeps his outside leverage because the receiver's lined up inside the numbers. So plays his outside leverage, shuffles out to mirror him off the line, does a good job of creating contact, getting into his body with a two-hand jam before eventually sealing him off to the sideline, getting his head around, and making an aggressive high point and good play on the ball here. So great breakup for Joe Haden and really stepped up in the fourth quarter. So one play later here, 3rd and 10, late in the game against the Bengals, and Steelers come out in a man-free concept with Micah Fitzpatrick over the top. And we're going to see Joe Haden here just gets a great jump undercutting the ball. And to me, it honestly looks like a film study play where he's diagnosing, if my receiver's in this wide of a split, in 5 wide, like what possible routes could he run, and just going from there, because he just does a great job understanding that he has safety help over the top, basically runs the route for the receiver, letting the receiver get past him before going into trail technique and undercutting it for what ultimately should have been his second pick in a row. But I think let's look at the more positive aspect of the Bengals just tested Joe Haden 2 times late in the game, late in the fourth quarter. He stepped up 2 plays in a row with 2 huge pass breakups. And ultimately, Steelers go on to win this game by single digits. So it's these kind of plays that is winning defense in the NFL, and it's this level of cornerback play that the Steelers haven't had in years that finally allows them to be that elite defense we've wanted to see since 2010. So Week 14, third quarter here, Cardinals driving, and they opt to come out and attack the Steelers in an empty set. Joe Haden at the top of the screen to the boundary, and the Cardinals, with their 2 receivers to that side, are going to run a slide concept. So number 1 runs a go, and number 2 is going to run a out route. And for Kyler Murray, the read is if Joe Haden's going to come up early on the out, you're going to throw the go behind him and in front of the safety in what's called a hole shot against cover 2. And if Joe Haden syncs with number 1, as he should, generally with the rules of cover 2 and how it's played, then you should have room to hit the out in front of him. What Haden does really well here is he gives the illusion that he's going to sync with the out, which he does. He syncs with it. He takes it away, generally by his alignment. but he stays patient and he stays ready to drive on this out. And when Murray eventually declares, you'll see his shoulders turn towards it, and by the time Murray's ready to make the throw, Haden is already driving on the out, and he's able to undercut it for a extremely impressive interception, maybe the most impressive so far of his Steelers career. So week 15 here against the Bills, early fourth quarter, and the Bills actually have pretty good design on this run play. Motion by Isaiah McKenzie is going to force Terrell Edmonds to widen and become the contained player, causing Joe Haden, a cornerback, to become the primary run fit, which is generally, that's successful. That's how you design. That's how you ran it up. And then it's on Frank Gore to make Joe Haden miss. And normally with a cornerback tape, we're not going to look at the tight too much, but here it's pretty beneficial to check out the tight, so we'll go through it. But mainly what you're going to see is Haden does a really good job of discipline on his run fit here, where lined up in the D-gap, once created by the motion, and he's going to initially come inside to take away any cutback lane for Frank Gore. Frank Gore's not going to be able to cut back because Haden took the inside, knowing that he's a faster player than Gore, forcing Gore to bounce it and go wide. From there, Haden just tracks his back hip and makes a very aggressive tackle 2 yards in the backfield for a 2-yard loss. And you don't see too many tackles for a loss from a cornerback on power run plays. So week 16, first quarter here against the Jets, and Steelers come out in cover 3. Jets actually dial up a cover 3 beater with a post-over concept here, but Joe Haden and Micah Fitzpatrick's communication saves this from being a big play. So Joe Haden sees the receiver in the cut split, could be film study, but seems prepared for it, and ultimately communicates the over. So normally it'd be his job to follow the over, but knowing that he has Micah to the inside, once the over cuts in, Haden gives an in call. Minka's able to come up on that. And then most importantly, once Haden gives the over call, he's not content. He then looks for work and goes to help Steven Nelson deep against Robbie Anderson, ultimately undercutting the pass and coming down with what was initially called an interception and was eventually overturned. But overall, just great communication from Haden and great job being active in his zone and just going to make plays, not being content with stopping another receiver, but going and making plays. So that's going to conclude it for the Joe Haden piece today. And again, Joe Haden, I'd consider him and Steven Nelson 1A, 1B in terms of how they are for the team. I'd say Nelson might be the better pure man-to-man corner. I like a lot of what Joe Haden does as just a veteran, savvy zone defender who can still give you some really good work in man-to-man, understands his strengths and weaknesses, and plays to them really well. And I think with Nelson being around and Nelson being able to take some of those one-on-one matchups a little more, Haden was allowed this year to be a little more of a playmaker, which I think is, at this age for him, ultimately his best role. So exciting to see this duo coming back for 2020 and hopefully beyond at a cheap contract for being a top 5 duo in the NFL. It doesn't cost too much. So that'll be it for today, and we're going to come back with Cam Sutton and Mike Hilton soon enough.